Ladies and gentlemen, we're expecting some moderate turbulence.
Please remain seated and enjoy the show.
Hello.
And welcome to
Moderate Turbulence.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm Adele.
Hi, Adele.
Hi, Jeremy.
Who's with you today, Adele?
Jeremy.
Other than Jeremy.
It's Roxy.
And who are we talking about today?
Roxy.
We're going to talk about Roxy. Wow, she really shies away from me sometimes. I swear she loves me. Hi, Roxy. We're going to talk all about Roxy on this episode because we're going to talk about what it's like traveling with a pet in cabin. So flying with Roxy.
Yeah, so we briefly talked about it in the last episode. We've been flying back and forth a lot for weddings the past couple weekends. So this weekend we've just been trying to relax and do as minimal amount of things as possible just because we haven't been able to for the past 2 weeks. So, or 3 weeks. I don't know. Roxy. So yeah, I mean, we've been living in Vancouver for pretty much a year now. We're coming up on it. It's 2 weeks away from a year. And Roxy's been at least traveling back and forth between Vancouver and Calgary. Before we got recalled, she went to Montreal a couple times.
Yeah.
And we brought her back to Montreal 1 week ago when we went to Caitlin's wedding. So lots of traveling with this little cuteness. And we're just going to talk about the process.
Yeah. So, of course, we're both airline employees, so we use our travel benefits whenever we're flying. And it's a little bit more of an added challenge when we have to fly with Roxy because, number one, depending where we're seated on the aircraft, there are some seats that are known as restricted where you can't have a pet in cabin. There's no room under the seat in front of you to place a kennel for your dog. Now, we're going to show a picture up here as well of Roxy in her kennel. It acts as a little backpack as well. It'll probably be right up around here somewhere. So it acts as a little backpack. So Adele usually wears the backpack while we're walking through the airports. And then when we actually sit down on the aircraft, the kennel goes on its side and then underneath the seat in front of us so that there's like a little mesh area where Roxy can always have eye contact with us. So the other sort of challenge that we have to face is we can't just walk inside the airport and go to our gate. We have to actually go talk to an agent, make sure Roxy is registered on the flight, make sure there's not too many dogs already on the flight because there are limits to how many pets you can have in cabin. So we always check all of that information beforehand, and when it's good to go, we go register on the flight, pay for her to be on the flight, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, so usually when we bring her along, we have to plan to be there at least a couple hours before our flight, because if we just travel, the two of us carry on, we can get away with stepping foot inside the airport an hour before our departure time.
Like easily, because we are rake holders, which means we have like a security badge. We get to go through the same line as like Nexus and things like that. So it's a much quicker avenue through the airport.
Yeah, so with Roxy, we have to be a bit more timely with our arrival. So we have to line up. And this summer, it was very, very busy at airports. We all were, seeing the pictures coming out. And we've talked about it as well on the podcast of, here, you hold her.
Okay. Hey, Roxy.
Of, the crazy airports and like Toronto and London and all the bags. And so it got a bit busy this summer. So I think we've waited almost an hour once to register her. Yeah. I don't know if this was in Vancouver or Montreal, but we've waited a while, but we plan ahead and we plan for these things. So, and we of course have to pay for her. So it's,
there's an added cost. Yeah.
It actually costs her more to fly than us.
Yeah.
So that's a little annoying.
But worth it, because look at her.
We've only ever traveled domestically with her. So, I mean, we have gone to Seattle with her by car, but it's a lot more, it's a lot simpler to travel with a dog going across the border by land than it is to fly across the border. They technically should check the same things, but they're a bit more
Stringent.
and yeah, at the airport security. So maybe one day we'll fly with her somewhere internationally, but for now it's only been domestic, and it's been good. Like, she's gotten used to it. At first she was very nervous, and then she got a bit used to it, and then she got nervous again. But we kind of developed a routine with when we have to fly with Roxy. We make sure to first walk her in the morning,
Try
or
and tire
just
her out a
before
bit,
the flight. We try to get her off leash, try to get her running, try to get her to
Use up
expend
some
that energy.
Yeah, for sure.
So she's not as wound up, and she has a bit of tiredness come up, so that when she's on the flight she can just, you know, relax a little bit.
My other big joke is I always say Roxy loves a pod. On some of our wide body aircraft, of course, we have the full like pods for people to sit in. And when Adele gets one of those seats and there's lots of room under the seat in front of her for Roxy tends to like that because you're private. There's no other people around. It's just you and your pod. And then Roxy can stare up at mommy.
Yeah, she's just, because she's a nervous dog. She's a rescue. So she definitely, it's better for her to not see any other person. And of course, like, she's cute, so whenever people do see her, they just want to come up to her and pet her and get all up in her face. And it's just, she's not the social people dog that can withstand that. She's very shy, and if you come up to her too quickly, she's just gonna get scared.
Yeah.
So it's just way better to have that privacy of a pod. But that's a perk that we're very lucky to be able to take advantage of sometimes. But sometimes, you know,
it's been a while since we've had her in a pod, to be honest.
Well, since August.
When you took
When we went home in August. But yeah, sometimes we're
Luck of the
lucky,
draw,
sometimes we're not so lucky. But yeah, when we can, we're happy to have that. And that's not something that's a tip or anything, because of course not everybody can afford. We would never be able to afford to fly in business class if it wasn't for those perks. So it's just, I would say, get a carrier that your dog is comfortable in. So get them used to the carrier before the flight. Definitely don't just randomly buy one and then put them in and then bring them to the airport. That won't work. You know, make sure it's comfortable for them. So maybe put like a little blanket or something that they're familiar with, so they can, you know, feel like it's their own personal space. And definitely, if you can, at least a little walk or something before the flight to just get their little nervous energy out. Some airports have
pet relief areas.
Yeah, but not all of them. In Canada, there's one in Calgary and there's one in Montreal.
There's a few in Calgary, yeah. Apparently there's one in Vancouver. We haven't found it yet. Like, I was looking online to try and find it. But we've definitely found the ones in Montreal and Calgary and Toronto. There's one in Toronto right by the security.
Oh yeah, in Toronto it's nice and secluded in Toronto, so it's a good one in Toronto. She's never been to the Toronto airport though. But yeah, and she's also gotten used to going in the airport, because the first couple times that we've flown with her and I introduced her to those areas, of course, a lot of other dogs use those areas, and
a lot of different smells. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't smell very good if you're standing around there. But now she's gotten used to that, so she goes if she needs to. Does
her little business. Yeah.
So, yeah. I think the longest flight we've taken her on is like a 4-hour flight. So from Vancouver to Montreal, about 4 hours.
Or vice versa, yeah.
So yeah, 4.5 hours, which is quite long. She has to stay in her carrier the whole time on the flight. She can't come out. I can take her up on my lap, and like put my hand in and pet her or stuff. But She can't come out or anything. So
And
that's why like an international flight might be
really long. Yeah.
it might be very long. Although I feel with her getting used to it, it could be plausible at some point. But at the same time, traveling with a pet incurs a lot of extra costs, whether it's the airline or the hotel or everything. Like there's extra pet fees for everything. So if we can just have like our friends or our family just watch her while we're away, it's much easier. And then she's also much more comfortable if she's at home. As much as she likes to be with us, she's better if she's just home.
Yeah. And just to give a little more insight, if you're bringing a pet in cabin, so your pet has to fit within the dimensions of an acceptable kennel or carrier. Usually soft-sided is better. And your pet has to be able to stand up within the carrier for them to come on board the aircraft. So we don't want any pets that are squished into a little carrier and stuffed under the seat and be really uncomfortable for the flight. That's not the point. The pet has to be able to travel comfortably. Otherwise, there's other ways to travel with your pet. Some airlines will allow pets in cargo. And then usually you'll see like big crates or carriers with larger pets that go in the cargo area.
Yeah, that's how actually I brought my dog Belly back from France. She traveled in the hold because she's a bigger dog. She's like a medium-sized dog, so she wouldn't be able to be in the cabin.
Yeah.
And that was fine. I did travel internationally with her, I guess, but that was also very easy. Just paid a $30 fee when I arrived in Canada. And that was it.
Peasy.
Showed my proof of rabies for her, and that was that. So I guess it's not that difficult to travel internationally with animals, but it just costs a lot, and I don't find it necessarily fair to the animal to just bring them around all the time as much as we think it's fun to have them around. I feel like
it's putting
they don't
added
understand,
stress.
and every time Roxy's in the kennel in the aircraft, she just tries to get out of it. She scratches a little bit, and she just doesn't understand why she's in this environment, has to be in a kennel, but every other situation she's free like this. So yeah,
there's the little added stress, but it's still the most convenient way to get from point A to point B long distance with our dog. Hi. Oh, you've become a good traveler. You get all the attention when we're flying too. Everybody wants to see you. They don't care about us.
Oh yeah, the passengers, crew members are always so excited to see her, which is fun because you're like, oh, okay, if she's like makes a little noise, everybody's doesn't mind as much because she's cute.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, the majority of the times when we're leaving the flight, people are like, oh, there's a dog? I had no idea for that whole flight that you had a dog with you. That happens quite often. The other thing, if we're in the airport, and many airports, she doesn't have to be in the kennel. She can be walking on a leash. And then people gravitate towards a cute little fluffy dog. If the owners of the dog say she's really nervous or my dog's really nervous, not really great around humans, that's not an invitation to be like, I'm the dog whisperer, I'm going to get close to your dog. That usually means, hey, you know what? Back off a little bit. Give the dog some distance. We've had a few encounters like that where people are like, oh, what a cute dog. We're like, yeah, she's a little nervous, you know? And they're like, oh, that's great. And start petting her or getting up close to her or making little noises. And we're just like, yeah, we told you she's nervous for a reason so that you don't just go up to her and start, you know, intimidating her in some way. Give her some space. So let that be a lesson to everybody out there. You're not the dog whisperer. If someone says, don't touch my dog, don't touch your dog. Don't touch their dog.
Yeah. I mean, we've had that recently. I mean, it happens all the time, but a special circumstance just last month when we were coming back from Calgary, and this one woman wouldn't leave us alone, and I had to physically walk away with Roxy to get her to not, you know, be in Roxy's face, because it was still like mask mandate was upon us, and she removed her mask to get inches from Roxy to make high pitched sounds,
weird noise. Yeah.
to get reactions out of Roxy. It was just the weirdest thing, and it's just like, woman, you can get away from us now.
No, thank you. We'll pass.
But I mean, that comes back. We didn't mention it, but no more masks on planes.
Oh yes, that's right. Finally. Oh, we've done one flight now where masks were not required. And yeah, we flew from Montreal back here to Vancouver with no masks. How did you like it?
Yeah. I mean, I was still kind of hungover from the wedding, so I was very tired, but it was interesting, and it was also very nice to see crew members' faces again. Like, I can finally recognize people because I feel like people could still recognize me, but I was very bad at recognizing people with masks.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I might know that person, but I'm not really sure. So it's just nice. People are not going to wear masks. I can see their faces and I can know for sure if I know them or not.
Yep.
It's just nice. Like, we're finally seem to be over this, like
that sense of normalcy. It's like, it's not 100% there, but it's like the light is visible at the end of the tunnel now.
Yeah. And hey, just also quick note, if you are comfortable wearing a mask and you still want to, definitely that's still something that is completely normal. Like, absolutely. I feel like it was like not half and half, maybe like 40-60 on the plane. 60 obviously weren't wearing masks anymore, but a good amount of people were still wearing masks on the plane, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah,
a few of the crew members were still wearing masks, and again, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just like it's not mandatory anymore, so of course the ones who don't want to won't, but if you still want to and you still feel more comfortable wearing a mask, definitely do so. It's completely okay, and nobody's gonna judge you or look at you weird for doing so. You know, especially if you're not feeling well, that's when people should be wearing masks to protect others at that point. So if you need to travel and you have a bit of a cold or something, like, definitely wear that mask,
Yep. Agreed. 100%.
All right. Well, I think this wraps up this episode. And, remember, if you're traveling out there,
always be nice to your flight attendants because they might have pets too. No, that doesn't work. Always be nice to your flight attendants
because they might have to save your butt one day.
Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye.
Good girl. Good girl.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We have new episodes every Wednesday. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Moderate Turbulence on Instagram, at Mod Turbulence on Twitter, and follow us individually on Instagram at HuffyJ and at La Delvie. Thank you.